Urban and city planners who design public spaces to create communities and revitalize physical facilities solve complex problems. For instance, how to create walkable cities, how to best use resources and manage waste, and how to do it in a way that fosters the health of citizens and residents. But as population and urbanization grows, city must accommodate more people against the backdrop of aging infrastructure. The job of the urban planner is now more critical than ever. They must become futurist and imagine cities, spaces, and buildings that address the problems of a struggling planet. Let's learn more about the role of urban planners and how sustainability can address many modern challenges. Dror Ben-Shetrit is described as a designer, thinker, dreamer, and futurist. He is world-renowned for his work in reimagining cities, spaces, and buildings through his recent brainchild, Supernature Labs. It sounds like a cliché to say that he is inspired by nature, but Dror takes it to a new level. His work is revolutionizing the built environment and how humans live with and respect the planet. I want my children and grandchildren and their children to live in a city designed by Dror. Would you please give an overview of Studio Dror, and in particular your fascinating approach to the integration of design, architecture, art, technology, and invention?
For me, design has always been about integration of disciplines, designing with no boundaries. And actually what interests me more is the space between disciplines, where art and design collide, where architecture and design or architecture and art collide. Since I'm a little kid, I've been creating stuff. It was mostly in the form of art, paint making, print making, sculptures. It was really only in my early 20s when I realized that art plus functionality is design. It's always been very interesting for me to kind of question the essence of certain typologies. So what is a chair? Why does it look like that? Why does it behave the way that it behaves? Can it behave differently? Can it look differently? Kind of dive into the core essence of the things that we use in our lives. Close to almost now 5 years ago, I have turned 40, and it was a moment in which I started asking myself questions. What does the world really need from us to do at the moment? And it was clear that it was about the future of the built environment. And I felt that there must be better ways for us to build and plan cities with nature integration. And we have the technological capabilities today, we have the manufacturing capabilities, and we can totally lead towards a new era of living regeneratively and in like a completely different relationship with the natural world.
You know, Supernature Labs is on a mission to stop urban sprawl. What does it mean to design and build like nature?
We are scheduled to double the built environment in the next 30 to 40 years. Now, in addition to the fact that cities are becoming denser, we're also going to double the land coverage of cities all around the world in the next 20 years. And that's the end of the natural environment in those areas. We know today that if we utilize a more cellular approach, which is how nature aggregates absolutely everything, right? And also you're creating communities that are about sharing, about trust, about inclusivity, about having nature in the center. And the motivation for those communities is what we call nature preservation and conservation, which, if you think about it in the context of urban planning, that means something completely different, right? It's a preservation and conservation of building, not preservation and conservation of nature.
That is fascinating, Dror. I mean, it's a complete new concept, and it's really forward thinking that sort of symbiosis between nature, architecture, design, for also a greater community and to preserve the earth. I know that circularity is part of it, and my next question is going to be about materials.
When you look at most of the built environment that we're creating in recent years, you can say that the environment is very mechanical. Building looks like machines and everything is quite masculine and utilitarian. And for us, there's something really beautiful about paying attention to a more curvature and kind of softer environment in which the buildings are fading into another rather than just, sticking out. When we think of our typology, which we call the supercell, which intending to replace what we call the super block, you can see that because it's have like a more circular logic, a 6-point type cell logic, so it kind of looks like a Pringle shape. And when you aggregate those types of Pringle shapes, you get this very soft, almost like a landscape to the environment. What is the opposite of flow in our urban experience right now, right? Like being stuck in traffic. Every intersection is a place of conflict, is a place of, if I don't stop, we're going to crash. So when you start to aggregate cells, you realize that you don't have crossing anymore. You have just mergers and divisions, right? So you kind of flow into the environment rather than get stuck.
To what degree are you concerned about the type of materials that are used? And also, that is, to what degree does your perspective on sustainability look back into the supply chain in addition to the design themselves?
Yeah, materials is everything. And when you start to realize the type of material that we use for interior, outfitting and decorations and furniture, you would be kind of shocked how much toxicity there is, how polluting those materials are. We have to take those things into consideration. There are so many incredible materials that are being developed right now as replacement to the materials that we're currently using. Biological materials that are grown, such as mycelium, which is very, very, very exciting.
Can you describe, so then we understand even a little bit further, the bioplanning concept, and how a scalable urban development typology can support all its inhabitants while fostering healthy, sustainable, and regenerative ecosystems?
There's also something quite important about using, for as much as possible, local material. What are the type of natural conditions that we need to respect? They're different in different places. Let's take into consideration that we are working on a piece of land that is currently a forest, and it's now zoned for a high-density urban area. And what we would do before, we would basically clear the forest, right? Clear the forest, pour the foundation, create a certain infrastructure, then the buildings are going to come, and then maybe we're going to bring a few more trees back. So we basically said, well, what happens if the communities are around those various specific biomass that we want to preserve? And then we kind of looked at the drawing and said, well, that kind of looks like cellular logic. Like under the microscope, you see those types of shapes. What does that actually mean? It means that we're not just designing with nature, we're actually designing like nature. In architecture, we like to say that, we shape buildings and then building shapes us. If you are constantly in a cubicle with a fluorescent light, with no windows, you behave a certain way than if you have like an amazing corner office with, trees outside and, daylight. And of course, there's so many studies already that shows that if you have one tree in front of your house, the value of your real estate is approximately 9% higher. There's already studies that shows that when you're living in a close proximity to nature, your immune system is better, your productivity is better. We're also creating environments that can meet at the center where cars are not present because cars are moving around the cells. I can't wait to get to the point where we can measure those things in real communities and say, people are collaborating more. People are trusting each other more. There is more equality. There is more, inclusivity, because just like a round table discussion is round because, it gives equal opportunity to everybody around, a circular community can create the same thing. Really, nature is the best architect. 4.5 billion years of evolution that have so much to show us, have so much to teach us in terms of ecosystem designs and incorporation of living things in our environment and in our process. In all of our projects, both on Studio Drawer and Supernature Labs, this idea of integrating the experience within the nature is quite central for us.
Rick Fredizzi is the executive chairman of the International Well Building Institute and was the founding chair and CEO of the US Green Building Council. These two institutions develop, manage, and administer the two most globally recognized and frequently used rating systems for green, healthy buildings, LEED, and WELL. How do these programs help urban planners design cities and urban spaces that are more sustainable?
The first wave of sustainability is planetary health, focusing on the planet and all the things we can do to reduce carbon and create a healthier, greener planet. The second wave of sustainability is the laser focus on human health, and how those two things may never be separated, humans and the planet. And ultimately, we need both to be able to carry on a meaningful life for our children. The impact and how we perform is not limited to the walls that we live in inside our houses, but throughout the public spaces. And so thinking now of LEED as a tool or WELL as a tool, thinking of it in the community scale, how we're going to have a future where neighborhoods are more walkable, where they encourage exercise, where local farmers markets and accessibility to organic foods is commonplace. It's not the outlier or some unique situation. It makes us human.
What trends are you seeing in the planning for public spaces and urban settings in the desire to ensure these spaces are more sustainable and foster well-being?
One of the things that I'm always entertained by is that we look in our communities and oftentimes we see more signs that say no dogs allowed than we do stop signs. We live in a world where a pet can actually be tremendous mental and emotional support for us. And our ability to experience our neighborhoods and our communities with our dog, with our friend, is a really important thing. When Well Community Standard Pilot was developed, we heard from tremendous amount of people. They wanted organic food access, farmers markets, entertainment venues. They wanted walkability and the ability to exercise even when they weren't thinking of exercising, that it was much more enjoyable to go out of your house or out of your apartment and walk to all of these elements than it was to get in your car and drive anywhere. It's a very exciting thing to see this transformation. And again, it comes back to basic human respect, helping people understand what is most important to make their lives meaningful and healthier and more vibrant. We've gone through a crisis that many people have never experienced, something like this. And it's clear to me, and I believe it, with my heart, that people have learned something that will stay with them forever. And it won't be just about wearing a mask or social distancing. It will be about how did you keep your family safe? What elements of health did you look at to continue to keep your family safe? Where did you invest your dollars going forward in your community? Those are the small lessons that we're learning right now. When we talk about promoting well-being, and especially since the pandemic, I really believe there will be a three-prong approach that will make the opportunity to achieve these goals possible. And certainly one is demand. Having customers demand this, residents, employees, students demand this. All of the opportunity for reclaiming our wellness must come from the people that feel that they have lost something to begin with. And I think the developers at the end of the day want to do this because we're creating a paradigm where they make money doing it. Envision, you open your front door, you walk out into a world that is now a well community. These wide sidewalks make it great for people that want to casually talk and walk, and bikers or runners can be running on the same streets, and there's no conflict as there is today. You might stop at your local farmer's market and pick up a piece of organic fruit that you're going to have for your 10 o'clock snack at your office. All of these things give you the ability to have this engaging, exciting connection to your neighborhood. It sounds almost like a dream, but it's very real. And it's actually happening today. There are many places that are doing this today. And I think it's the kind of thing we all want in our future.
In 2013, Vicky Meyer-Ekstrom founded a company called Really to upcycle used cotton and wool into premium materials that can be recycled again and again. With the backing of Quadrat, the global leading manufacturer of design textiles, Vicky has her sights set on a goal, a completely waste-free industry. How do you use fashion items that have been thrown away as well as offcuts from Quadrat and convert them into reused products?
My company specifically works with textile waste streams. It's about upcycling waste textile into new valuable products. And in our case, the products are either hardboards, very dense composites, or for tabletops, for example, or shelving system, or front desk, or panels, or it's acoustic membranes. 3 friends formed a company saying we can actually utilize waste textiles into new valuable products. And the whole idea was to use simple mechanical processes. So basically what we do is we take waste textile, we mill it down to small fibers, like fiber strands. Then we blend it in a non-woven process where we use no water, we use no dye. We actually use the textile's colors as it originally was. And then we can use that as an acoustic membrane or an acoustic felt. Or we actually compress the felt into a hardboard. It's a very simple 3-step process. It's the milling, it's the non-woven process, and it's the compression. When we started out, Laurence, we were 3 inventors that actually just saw a problem. The massive amount of textile waste that is out there in the world. We saw that problem, but we also identified that with the growing industry of fashion, with the growing industry of furniture, growing population in the world, people need commodities. People need, clothes. They need tabletops. They need chairs. They need panels, and so on. And we need to substitute some of the virgin materials that we work so excessively with today. We utilize so much. We need to bring in new materials that can substitute these materials. So when we started out, we thought, okay, we're 3 people that has the energy. We have the good idea. We need more muscles, and that was actually the reason why we reached out for Quadrat, because Quadrat has this history in Denmark. It's part of the Danish design legacy. It's always been around since the 50s, since the modernism. It's a Scandinavian design. But Kvadrat is also a sustainable company because they create long-lasting products. Everything they do have a very high quality, last forever. And that's, paragraph 1 in sustainability. Create stuff that lasts. In regards of urban planning, we need to plan for circularity, because circularity is also about systems that works. It's about being able to put your waste into a place where it actually can be grabbed by somebody else and brought into a new loop. So there's a lot of planning around logistics. How do we do this with all the material streams that we're actually using? One of my points is that we cannot solemnly look at carbon emission. We also need to look at biodiversity. This is a very, very big agenda. And therefore, we need to substitute wooden material with other materials, because we cannot keep on cutting down forests. It's so important that we think smart. We use what we got. Do not use too much virgin material. Keep, utilizing the waste fractions that we have. We have more than enough, but not if we keep on take, make, and waste.
As Drob and Chetrit from Supernature Labs put it, art plus functionality equals design. But what is any of this worth if it harms our natural ecosystems and people's health? With populations growing and cities becoming more dense, we must reimagine how infrastructure coexists with nature and create a symbiosis between the two. Sustainability and circularity are key to planning cities that support a healthy environment. Beyond that, we must also reinvent the materials we use and focus on creating lasting change from the inside out. I refuse to fall prey to traditional ideas based on how it's always been made. Progressive new solutions that benefit everyone in the most ways possible is what inspires me. That is the heart of a circular mindset. Until next time, I am Laurence Carr, designing a more circular future.